Alright, so we're not done with this Jeep. What's the next step? Last night I talked to my friend Keith DeFazio. I'm like, Keith, this Jeep is possessed. What am I supposed to do next here? So we looked around, and on diag.net, actually a very great website, a resource for diagnosticians, there was a post by another technician about the exact same codes, P0394, P0390. For this camshaft bank 2 sensor 2 circuit code. It's not a circuit code, and there's a long discussion there, and at the end of the day, apparently the resolution was an intake phaser, but they didn't specify which one. In the data, it's almost identical to this thing, where the two banks, the intakes, the cam crank difference is about 10 degrees apart at full advance. So I don't know if they replaced the phaser on the opposite bank, the one that on this one is actually setting a slow response code when you're trying to do the cam crank relearn. So we can't do the cam crank relearn. We have this rattling when the exhaust cams are retarded on startup. That's not normal. There was a mention of oil gallery plugs that could become loose on one of the cylinder heads, causing a drop in oil pressure and setting some of these codes. So still not 100% clear, but we have to do some more definitive checks. So let's take it one more test drive. I'm just plotting 4 data PIDs, the exhaust and intake cam crank difference. Both banks should follow each other exactly. So on a cold start, or warm start, when it's warming up the cats, and right now it's rattling. Check this out. Cam 1, 13 degrees retarded steady. Look at what Cam 2 is doing. It's almost like it's bleeding off, minus 5 degrees. Like, why would that not set a code? Very suspicious. And this is on bank 2. It's rattling pretty loud. And wait for it. Boom. No more rattle. Cams are locked. Everything's happy. Let's drive it around a little bit. First, at light throttle, the exhaust cams should, retard for the EGR effect. Again, Cam 2 is being a little lazy. Cam 1 is just rock steady at minus 13 degrees. Minus 47 degrees, minus 44 degrees. Okay, they're pretty close. The 2 intakes are pretty close. Pretty close. So the problem right now is not too evident. The only weird thing was that exhaust cam rattle, and bank 2 being not as retarded as bank 1. Guys, on the next startup, look at this. Exhaust cam 2 is barely retarding. Exhaust cam 1 is at minus 13 degrees. And it's making a bad sound. On bank 2. No code set yet. So when I'm driving under light throttle, you can hear that little tick 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 when the exhaust cams are being retarded. So there's something going on in bank 2. We were just there on the exhaust cam. Do we have to take that valve cover off again and check for loose oil gallery plugs? Is that phaser bad? Is the little magnet being weird? Alrighty, next experiment, we're going to do this manually. So first I want to start it up as is. When the cams are locked, I want a cam to cam correlation just to see if what we did with the bank 2 intake cam changed anything at all. Then I want to energize the VVT solenoids, the little magnets, manually one by one. So these right here, intake 1-1, intake 2-1, exhaust and exhaust, just with a 1 amp test light, and see the reaction. Do we hear any sounds? We'll see on the scope by how many degrees that cam phases, and we'll see on scan data, hopefully, on this cam crank difference, how many degrees each cam phases. We'll take notes and see if there are any cams that are misbehaving. So let's fire it up. And take a look. So you see, -13 and -4. I don't like that. And then we'll wait until they lock in. Right there. So on page 2. And screen 3. I think that should be enough. Okay. Let's pause that and see how the cams line up. Alright, so here's the waveform before the cam swap. And remember, we're worried about the blue trace, bank 2 intake versus bank 1 intake, with the pulses being a little shorter. Now, new phaser, they look identical. I mean, I don't see any difference. However, the code doesn't seem to be setting. The 394 doesn't set nearly as often. So, I wonder why. Like on this past test drive, didn't set at all. So, new cam didn't do anything. I'm sure of that. Now, see, that's the new. This was the old. Okay. Exhaust lines up just fine. So now I want to take one of the channels and put it on my test light, so when we touch the test light to whatever solenoid, we'll see the signal on the scope, and then we know exactly when the cam should have phased, and we can measure the degrees on the scope versus scan data for each individual cam. Okay, so here's the setup. We have that yellow lead coming from battery positive to here. Now I have my 1 amp test light rigged up with channel 2 monitoring that test light. So when I connect the test light to the yellow wire, you'll see it light up dim, and right now it's energizing the bank 1 exhaust solenoid. You can actually hear it click. You just connect and disconnect it. It's very slight. So bank 1 exhaust. So let's start it up, let it stabilize, and then I'll connect this and we'll see on the scope when I connected it, and we'll see hopefully the phase shift of the cam. It should be full, full phased, maximum retard on that camshaft. So right now on the red channel you can actually see the command, and right now it's stopped. So now, let it stabilize. Let's energize it. 51 degrees solid and off. Back stable. Okay, that's good. Okay, so I saved that file. Let's roll the scope again. Now we're doing bank 1 intake. Again, we'll wait for that warm up. Okay, and they're off. Now let's connect my test light. .43 degrees on intake cam 1, and release. Okay, I like that. Alright, now let's do bank 2 intake. Run the scope. And okay. Wait for the next screen. And here we go. Look at that. Nothing. No phasing. What the heck? I don't know about you guys, but the solenoid's definitely clicking. There is no phasing effect at all on bank 2 intake. I want to do that one more time because I don't believe the results. Is there low oil pressure on the bank 2 head? See, bank 2 exhaust can't retard. That's what's going on. Intake cam 2, crank difference, and okay, now it phased 50 degrees. Why didn't it phase before? Let's try again. Look, it's not phasing right now. Not phasing. Let me rev it up just a hair. There we go. It phased. Not happy. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Very interesting. So we're gonna have to take that valve cover off again. I'm pretty sure there's oil leakage somewhere. It's not, we couldn't phase it at idle. We have to lift the RPMs up a hair. Look at this. This one I revved it up, right? Then it finally went. It went up to 50 and then it went up to 45 here. So very interesting. Bank 2 intake. No phase. Then 50 than 45. It's a spec low oil pressure. Let me save this and we'll do the most interesting one. The one that's making all the racket, bank 2 exhaust. Alright, so I had to switch channel 3 to monitoring the solenoid power. So now channel 2 is the bank 2 exhaust like it was before. Fire it up again. Wait for it. Okay, let's do it. Attach power to the exhaust phaser. And now, test lights are on. No phasing on the exhaust. If I rev it up, I'm sure it will, and it'll make that sound. So minus 30. And phase it again. No response. Oh, let me start my scope here. So I'll connect the solenoid and just rev it up a touch. Get a little more oil pressure in there. There we go. Minus 27. Remember, bank 1 went to minus 50, no questions asked. That's it, we're done. We're turning this valve cover off, bank 2 again, looking for oil leaks. Ah, a sweet taste of victory. Valve cover's off again. And the problem is very evident if you know where to look. What do you guys see missing right there? See that by the INT? Kind of looks like a bolt. And then the arrow is pointing to our problem. It's just a hole, and that is the oil gallery. Holy crap. How is this head even working? So that oil was just getting spit out. This had no oil pressure. Let's go online and take a look at diag.net, because that post that Keith shared, it was very informative. So the Diagnostic Network. Myself, I have not been a member up until now. I just subscribed yesterday because this is gold. So for 50 bucks a year, you have this resource with very knowledgeable, experienced technicians on here. It's not a forum, it's not DIYers, you know, with 90% of fluff. This is dedicated, focused diagnostics. So let's look at this post. 2015 Jeep Wrangler 3.6 liter, code P0390 and 394 by Philip Zanders in Anchorage, Alaska. So he had these two codes, 390 and 394. Problem occurs when you're accelerating on the highway from 3,500 to 4,500 RPM. CO will illuminate. This is sounding very much like the Jeep that we have. Monitor VVT and engine oil pressure data. Accelerating on the highway, never get anything below 60 psi. City driving 30 psi. Monitored bank 1 and bank 2 intake cam sensor via PICO scope while driving. Did not see any signal drops. I did see bank 1 and 2 did not line up during accelerating. I do not know if this is how it's supposed to do the cam actuator solenoid or not. So unplug the solenoids, line up, yep. So everything's in time. The problem is when the cams are phasing. So anyways, here's a discussion. So people can share their experiences, their suggestions. And right here, there is a very interesting post by Charles Burkham Audi of California. Before you go chasing your tail farther, you need to remove the left valve cover and inspect these oil galley plugs. You can fit a 1/4 inch 13mm swivel down there between the cover and phasers to get on them. It doesn't sound like they have fallen out and down into the pan yet. Since your fault are not consistent, they only need 12 foot-pounds of torque to tighten them back up. So here they are. On our Jeep, this one is completely missing. That's the whole entire problem why Bank 2 has very low oil pressure. And then this guy says, a very likely issue well known on these engines. Well, it's the first time I've seen one, but if you work on them every day, then perhaps it's well known. Little blue Loctite is the best fix. Require a little more work to remove the plugs and clean. Other issue is with the tone wheels. End of each cam. Fine metal shavings can build up. Okay. So then Philip responded, and the resolution, it's highlighted in green, replacing the intake cam phaser fixed it. Funny thing is the exhaust one threw a code right away, and they ended up going back and replacing that one too. So interesting, the resolution didn't work for me. Well, at first, we were going to replace the intake phaser. Nothing wrong with it, nothing wrong with the cam. We just have low oil pressure. So I'm going to try to find the correct plug or a short bolt with a copper washer, something that'll fit and plug that hole. It doesn't need to be fancy, it just needs to fit threads. Now, in terms of the diagnostic process, yes, we installed parts that didn't need to be installed. So how do you proceed with this? Obviously, I can't charge the customer for the unneeded parts, but this was a very lengthy diagnosis involving, you know, this manual activation of the phasers. Red flag, gave it away. Bank 2 is not responding on both cams at idle. So you want to check at idle when the oil pressure is low and compare bank to bank. That gave it away. And then this post here also helped by showing exactly where these oil gallery plugs are that apparently just fall out. So I guess that's a Chrysler thing. But anyways, I'm going to try to find a replacement plug, put it in there, put it all back together, and do the same checks, make sure the cam's phase. We'll see if we can do the cam crank relearn. Should be as good as fixed. I hope that driving around like this, because the customers had this problem for months now, that head, I mean, it had some oil pressure, but at idle it basically had zero oil pressure. So hopefully nothing was harmed, and he has a new camshaft now, so I don't know. Hopefully it'll be okay. So I was trying to get the second plug that's still present out, and it was basically finger tight. It's coming right out. That's insane. So there's no Loctite on there, there's no lock washers. It's just a plug. So I'm going to get this out and try to find a bolt that's similar and screw it in with some Loctite or something and fix this Jeep up. Well, I found a couple bolts with the same thread that will work. I think it's an M8 by 1.25. Probably use this one. I just want to cut it short because you don't want to plug the entire gallery just in case there's a passage, you know, going sideways. So I'll cut it to the same length as this one, grind it off, and then this one already has some kind of Loctite on it. No washers used, just got to torque it to spec, I guess. I don't know how these things back out. Alright, here's the original plug. Put a little Loctite on there. I mean, these should never come out. There's no reason to take these out ever, I don't think. So, see if I can sneak this in here. It's a little tight with the phaser in the way. let me install both of these and we'll repeat that experiment, manually energizing the solenoids, seeing if that makes any difference. It definitely should. So you just kind of spin it in with your finger and then tighten it with a wrench from the side here. That's a 13 millimeter. And the other one's a 10 millimeter. Let me do that before the Loctite sets. Alright, both cam or oil gallery plugs are in. There's the new one. There's the original one. Slap it back together. Hopefully this thing runs like a dream. Alright, here we go. So after repair, we're going to phase the bank to intake first. Let's roll the scope. We got the data pits pulled up. Fire it up. We should have no rattle now. Beautiful. The exhausts are now happy. We'll wait for those to stabilize. This Jeep is fixed. Amazing. One bolt required. Okay, now we're done. Let's phase the intake. 50 degrees, instant, and let go. Back to zero. Awesome, so we'll save that. And let's repeat the exhaust. Alright, final test. Bank 2 exhaust. Love it. It purrs. No more rattling. Okay, so we're done. Ready? $50 degrees, instant, and unplug. Beautiful, instant response. So we'll take a picture of that. I got to button everything up, clear all the codes, take this thing for one more test drive. It should run perfect. Alright, we'll taking the Jeep on one more test drive, and everything's looking great. I'm wondering if it will successfully complete the cam crank relearn this time. I just want to do it because, you know, we changed parts, we changed just want to see if it'll go through. So, key on, engine off. Okay. Engine must be running. Start engine. Okay. Okay, let's see if it goes through the process here. Boom! Relearn complete. It's happy. So it should take like 5 seconds. That's known good. Let's take it around the block. Make sure the cams are phasing and the owner's picking it up tomorrow. Happy ending on this one. The Jeep is running absolutely fantastic. More torque, more power, smoother operation. On scan data, we see perfectly even phasing, bank to bank. See the exhaust there and then the intakes. So that's it for this one. Almost no parts required. Once again, I broke my own rule. I was not 100% sure what the problem was. Fired some parts at it, didn't fix it. So, just needed a little bolt. plug a hole in the oil gallery. Unbelievable. So, learned something new. Customer's very happy. He's not paying for the new camera or the phaser. I'm just keeping his old stuff. And just a couple extra hours of diagnostics and repair. And that's it. So, thanks all for watching. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.